what I'm about to show you is what the best operating cadence looks like. Let me caveat this. One, this cannot be done by the sales leader alone. This has to be supported across the business. It has to be supported, and I'm lucky I've got a great CMO to support. I've got great heads of product. I'm surrounded by really great people. So this can't just be a one person driving it. This is also best in class. I am 3 months into my role. I would love to tell you that I've got all of this sorted myself and we're operating on this. It does take a little while to get into. Okay. So a lot of times when I'm talking to new leaders, they ask, what should I be doing? So I do a lot of advisory work again for Notion. And sometimes the sales leaders, they don't want to admit they don't know what they should be doing. So what I'm going to talk about today is a framework for best in class. It will take a while to get there. I'm 3 months in. I am not there yet. It's putting the pieces in place. So I just want to caveat that you can't turn around to your sales leader and say, great, this should be in by next week, because they're going to fall over and you don't want them falling over. So share screen. Okay. Can y'all see my screen? Okay. So what does a great operating cadence look like? And more importantly, how do you manage it? So we're going to talk, and I tried really hard to figure out a way to make this workshop interactive, right? If you've been to some of my last workshops, we talked about things. So I don't have a formal interactivity piece here. What I'm going to do is hope and encourage lots of conversation. So please, if you can share, if you have better ideas, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of great ideas that come from this group as well. So here is a vision of the inside of your head, inside of the head of your CRO or VP sales, because they are trying to do lots of things all at once and make it look effortless. So I want you to see the things that they're thinking about or they should think about. So we're going to break this down into annual, quarter, and weekly. So annual, quarter, monthly, and weekly. On an annual basis, you need to really start understanding what your total addressable market is, right? You need to understand what is the kind of art of the possible that we can go after, so you can then narrow down and figure out who you should be going after. One of the challenges, the biggest challenge on a lot of startups, is you try to go after everybody. And when you're all things to everybody, you're not going to be very successful, because you can't do a lot of things, a few things really well. For those of you who have been operating for a while, things may change with your TAM. Are there adjacent markets that you can move into? Are there any changes from the past year based either on market needs, based on your product capabilities, or even based on your own understanding of what your TAM is? And that may change based on as you evolve. In a startup space, the TAM might be absolutely enormous. And as you hone in on what your ICP, ideal customer profile, is, you can start narrowing that down. You should also review your current customer lists. And this is really hard to do, because often when you sign clients, it's we'll make it work, right? We will make it work. There are customers who are not a good fit for you. They might be spending a lot of money, but sucking up huge amounts of resource, or tilting the product roadmap in a way that is very specific to them and not for the broader market. So take a look at who's not a good fit, but also who's great, right? Who is a great customer that you know you're providing value for? You know that there's lots of expansion potential with them. And you know that if you can start replicating them, your market will grow. That's a huge piece to take a look at, is doing that understanding. And My CMO is not on video right now, but she's on this call, and I can see her smiling broadly because that's one of the things that she's working on, trying to get us as a company to focus on as well. You also probably want to take a look at realigning your team to support that. Should it be more, all focused on new business? Should you start splitting it out and having new business and account managers for upsells, cross sells? Where does customer success fit in there? So I will pause for a second. Is anybody here doing this right now? Does this sound new to anybody? Okay. I'm going to assume everybody's doing all of this at once then. You also want to review your messaging. Now, this is not only done on an annual basis. I mean, you don't set a message at the beginning and then wait until the next year, but it's really good to take stock of, for those customers who bought, the successful customers, why? Why did they buy? How can you incorporate that into the messaging? What worked and what really didn't? And also in terms of the leads, how did you acquire those customers? Was it marketing activity? Was it outbound sales? Was it inbound from referrals? Take a look at that so you can then start planning. And this is also for a budgeting exercise. So you can then start figuring out where should your budget be allocated. Again, this is not something that you only do annually, but it's a good time to really take stock and review. Has anybody here done that review of what worked, what doesn't, and then change? Come on, somebody's got to have something to say, no? Okay.
Oh, if you want us to come off mute, yeah, definitely. We're currently doing this. This is a big, very important initiative that my company is doing right now.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't see video. Who was that?
As Jeremiah.
Jeremiah. And Jeremiah, where are you from?
I'm located in Indianapolis. I'm with a company called DataHawk.
Great. Yeah, it's really important. And if it's not done intentionally, oftentimes things flip around. Something else that you're going to need to do, thank you for that. Something else that you're going to want to do annually is start reviewing, based on that TAM, your territory assignments. Start thinking, and this is something that does not have to be set in stone. And as your company grows, your needs will change, which is why you do need to review it. Just because you start off with one sales methodology, the way that you have it broken out, that can change. So things to think about of your TAM and your ICP, are those mid-market or enterprise or both? Things to think about, if you only have enterprise sales reps, what is the career path for your SDR and BDR team? Are they able to go right from being a BDR to being an enterprise rep? If you're still new, you probably don't need that intermediate step yet. You can promote somebody, but you need to be thinking about, okay, what does this mean for the health of the organization and the career pathing? Other ways to break out territories, and these are by no means either or, they can be and. Does it make sense to have specialization by vertical? Does it make sense that depending on if you're selling into financial services or consumer goods, those might need different skill sets, or they may not. It might be that certain types of companies are cyclical, that you want to give your reps a balance of accounts. Geography also. How do you want to divide it? If most of your deals are being done on the phone, maybe geographical doesn't work, although it's easier to divide things up. One thing you do want to make sure is that there's accountability. There has to be accountability. So if we're never talking to a customer and the competition wins it, and somebody says, yeah, it wasn't on my list, that's not very good. You need to make sure that you think through your TAM, your ICP, and how that relates to accountability for deals. You also need to look at how much realistically can each rep manage. Now, here's the paradox. every single rep will want as much as possible. The reality is they actually don't do as well when they have everything, because they will only go after the low-hanging fruit, and anything that's harder, they're going to skip over. It's just standard for reps, right? If you can narrow that down, it'll force them to dig deeper and work harder on deals. And I like to hire on lagging indicators. So there's leading indicators and lagging indicators in a business. Does everybody understand what that is? Just kind of give a hands up if you understand what that is. Nobody? Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Lise. So a leading indicator are things that are happening in your business that gives you indications that something else will happen. So for example, for me right now, I'm working on a model of, based on the number of meetings that we have, how many of those go through to discovery, i.e. they're not really qualified out, and how many of those go to our scoping. Of those, what percent go to proposal and what percent win? Now then I can work backwards and understand, okay, this is how many meetings we need to have based on average deal size and time to close. This is how many meetings each of my reps needs to have, so I know I have a high probability of hitting my number. That's called a leading indicator, right? Number of new business meetings should be, in a perfect world, this much revenue. Lagging indicator is things that have already happened that I can use to then spur me to take action. For sales, I tend to hire on slightly lagging indicators, meaning the reps are they're already busy. They're already carrying as much as I think they can manage, right? Without dropping balls. Because the last thing you want is 10 reps who aren't hitting quota. Hiring another 10 isn't necessarily the best idea, because either something isn't working in the sales process, something isn't right, and having 15 reps who aren't hitting quota was not either a solution, okay? You also want to, on an annual basis, figure out quotas. Now, depending on your deal size, you may have monthly quotas. Those are more transactional, quarterly, or if you're selling very big enterprise deals, annual probably makes more sense, because you can't force anything through in a quarter. That said, I have certainly worked in places where there were quarterly quotas with enterprise size deals, and it's just up to the reps to make sure they have that cadence of deals. So they're always working on something that will close. And that really kicks in year 2. Year 1 is usually a bit more of the ramping size. You also want to look at your quotas to make sure that they're hard to hit, but they're real. Just throwing a number, sorry, just throwing a number out there of, okay, this is what we've promised our investors, divide it by the number of reps. That doesn't work. I've also worked places where I had to patiently explain to my CEO that just taking the number that we need to hit and dividing it by the reps that we currently have is not a very sustainable way. So you need to figure out if you need to hire more reps, if you need more quota capacity. We'll get into that. Any questions here? So this is a lot to do on an annual basis. This is not just one person's job, right? This is across sales, across marketing, across product, across strategy, across operations. Keep going on the annual compensation plans. This is probably a whole separate conversation, but just know that every single rep will tear apart your compensation plan and figure out how to game it. You're not going to be any different. Know it, they will, and use that to your advantage. Just plan for the gaming. Compensation will always, always, always drive behavior. So if you say that we're going to pay extra on this one thing, just know that one thing will happen. I had, in one case, the deals that when I came in, all of the deals were mostly on monthly or quarterly billing. Oh, there's no way our accounts won't pay up front. No way. I mean, there was absolutely not. It's amazing how many deals were paid up front when I introduced a spiff for that. And all of a sudden, no, it'll never happen. All of a sudden happened. So don't get upset. You are not going to be the only one. Every single rep on every planet will game their system. So just think about when you're designing the comp plan, what do you want to happen, and incentivize that. You also need to start doing both top-down and bottom-up planning. Okay, this is the number that we need to hit. This is what we need in order to achieve it. But also, this is what we have. This is what we can achieve based on that. Best class, 60 to 65% of your reps will make quota. You're not, if 100% of your reps are making quota, either you have a phenomenal product, maybe your quotas aren't high enough, but that's something to think about. How much time does it take to ramp? Your reps are not going to be closing deals month 1, probably not month 2, month 3 maybe, unless they're coming in with warm deals. If you have a 180-day deal cycle, that if somebody is new and coming in a ramp, you need to start thinking about who do I need to hire? When do I need to hire them? And when should I expect them to actually be fully productive? You need to look at the deal size. You need to look at the churn of the team. There will be reps who are leaving, new reps coming in, and what number do you need to hit for growth? So when we talk about top down, bottom up, that's what I mean. What do you as a revenue growth need to hit? And then also based on that capacity, what goes in? So one of the things you don't want to do is, again, take your number of reps, or sorry, let's say you've promised your investors $10 million this year and you have 5 reps. Is really giving every rep 2 million a quota realistic? Probably not. You also have to plan for what's called street quota and overcompensating. You always have to overassign. So what we call street quota is the quota that all of your reps add up to. Street quota should always be more than the number you really need to hit. So the number the leader is carrying, they have capacity, street quota over and above. How many people have planned for this? Anybody? Give me a thumbs up if you've planned for this. Awesome, Marcio. Give me a wave if you're like, oh, maybe I need to rethink this.
Hey, Jen, there was a question from on the chat about, is 60%, where does that number come from? And I hear kind of, 80% of my reps are 80% of quota. It aggregates to the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's the same number.
Yeah.
Is that intuitive or is that kind of evidenced?
This is evidence. This is if you look across all companies, when you look at the research companies that give you benchmarks to go to, benchmarks across all companies and really good companies, about 60 to 65 make quota. Look, I'm not saying, okay, you only want 60%. You would love people to make more. But if nobody's hitting quota, that's a problem. If only a few are making quota, also, that's a problem. Yeah. If you have about 60 to 65%, okay, we can go up somebody, then you know you've done something right.
I have a quick question on that.
Sure.
Oscar from Cladara and maybe it's because I didn't fully understand the street quota term, but are you expecting, if it's 60-65% make quota, are you expecting the 60 and 65% that do to make up for the 40 to 35% that don't, to have the 100%?
No, this is the difference between street quota. So when you hear have you heard the term street quota before?
No, I hadn't heard that.
Okay, so your street capacity, it's your capacity, right?
Okay.
Is you might have, let's just say 5 reps and you give them $1 million each. So you have $5 million of street quota.
Yeah.
What you should be planning on is having at least, anywhere from probably maybe anywhere from 10 to 20% overhead, right? So you know that realistically your number is 4 million. Sorry, I'm not capable of doing reverse maths right now.
It's all good.
But you know what I mean, right? So what you really want to make sure is Steven's on here, so I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but there's a board number, right? There's a board number that you're promising your board. There's the internal number that's a little bit higher to give you that wiggle room. And then there's the number that is assigned out to the field. So that way there's room, because it is not realistic to expect 100% of your reps to make 100% of their number 100% of the time. If you can get that, you're amazing.
And that is a completely accepted kind of behavior. Yeah, completely. And you know, you have to build that kind of capacity into your planning. I hadn't heard the phrase street quota. I like that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking a question.
Can I ask a question? You said at the beginning, you know, you can't do this on your own. And what are you most? I mean, this is a big workload, right? At a certain, you know, admittedly once a year. What are you most dependent upon? Systems, data, people.
Yes. I'm relying on data so I can understand what our TAM is. I can understand who our customers are. I mean, I suppose you can do this by hand, but the reality is that's an overhead that I don't think anybody has time for. So we'll get into tooling in a second. I have that as the last slide, but we can go into the tooling that you use. It relies on, again, marketing and product and strategy to understand what that market is. It relies on finance a lot to start figuring out the metrics of what you need. Again, this is not something that's only on the sales leader. It's driven by the sales leader, but or CEOs on some of it in terms of the numbers, but finance is also heavily involved.
RevOps, and your trusted RevOps person, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. RevOps, I'm actually counting them as part of sales, but yes. If you don't have a RevOps person, get a RevOps person.
Yeah.
And if you have a RevOps person, treat them very nicely. So that's annually. Now let's move on to what you need to do quarterly. I don't know if anybody's read my article on QBRs, but QBRs is a really good chance for the company to come together to understand what's in play. I've been in companies where the QBRs are basically salespeople reporting to themselves. It's useful. It holds people accountable. It makes them have a plan for the quarter. But it's so much more impactful when you can distribute that knowledge throughout the organization. It lets marketing understand what are the key accounts that are priorities. What do they need to do to reach out? It lets operations understand what is going to be happening. It lets CS know, okay, this is how I can start planning, because if they close these deals this quarter, I know what kind of resourcing I'll need for the following. Product will be able to hear, this is what's working, this is what's not. Okay, so it really is a cross-functional business. And just realign accounts as necessary. If somebody is drowning in accounts and somebody isn't, take a look. You know, what's happening.
I'm just wondering, Jen, if we could ask Claire, because I'm not on my laptop, to maybe drop that QBR article into the chat.
Oh, sure. You also, have you heard the phrase time kills all deals? Time kills all deals. The longer a deal slips, the less likely it is to close. So what I usually like to do at the beginning of the quarter, and I just started at the beginning of last quarter, but what I'm going to be doing at the beginning of October is action plans on deals that were supposed to close this quarter and slipped. If you told me 100% this deal is coming in this quarter and it didn't, we need to figure out what do we need to do to get that deal in the door as fast as humanly possible. Because those deals that keep slipping quarter after quarter after quarter are probably going to slip quarter after quarter after quarter. And quarterly, you want to review your pipeline, not just for this quarter, but for next. You want visibility ahead. The last thing you want to do is just start focusing on the quarter when the quarter has already started. I'm already obsessing about next quarter. I'm actually moving on to obsess about Q1, but I'm sparing my team that. So monthly. Now some of these might be slightly more advanced, and we are not to the point yet on this, but account plans. So account plans, when done poorly, are the bane of salespeople's existence. And they will write a document, they will do the bare minimum, and it will be just basically a fossilized version of stuff cut and pasted off of the internet. When you do account plans well, it brings people together for your biggest accounts to really plan and start thinking, how can we cross-functionally target these top customers? I have not introduced account plans to my team yet because right now I'm doing a huge amount of change and I need to get that bedded in. Next year for our top accounts, there will be account plans so we can make sure as a business, we are targeting them with the right message, that we understand their financial situation, we understand their strategy, and we can cross-functionally make sure that we're working together in the smartest way. What I found is for those top accounts, having a monthly, it can be quarterly, review of where are we with this account, but you want to at least once a month cycle through a bunch of the team to be able to see, okay, one person is this month, one person is this month. And then by the time you get through the year, you've reviewed at least 12. You probably want to start setting up monthly enablement sessions, because what you'll find is salespeople get really busy and they miss details. Salespeople are not known for reading all of the content you give them, no matter how often you try to spoon feed it to them. So having a monthly enablement session where you can bring in people from marketing, from product, to present what's new and to talk about different things that will help them do their business better, do their roles better, or also just talking about a deal that you won and breaking it down. We recently won a big deal where we won over the competition, who was, I think, a third of our price. So what was it that made us win that? Being able to break that down and instill that across everybody is really important. And again, review the next quarter pipeline, because you don't want to leave it until day one. Any questions on monthly? Okay, weekly. So I love this. The reps don't love it at the beginning, and then they do. So I have every Monday, I have a Google Sheet. And my lovely operations team was trying to figure out how I could do this in Salesforce, or I can do it somewhere else. I like it in Google Sheets because there's something psychological about having to physically type it in each week rather than just being pulled from a report. I also want to see everything on one sheet. I'm not going to show you ours. I just did the headline. So I have every Monday down this column is every rep's name. I want to know new meetings this week. Who are you meeting? Who are the new logos that we are speaking with? Right? So I have an idea. And also because this is visible to everybody in one pane, we have had times where somebody will say, oh, actually, I know somebody at this account, or I know I've actually spoken to them in the past. So it lets everybody see, because nobody's going to go through everybody's calendar, right? Nobody is going to go through Salesforce to try to see what new meetings there are. Just put it out there. I want to know follow-up meetings, those deals that are advancing. Who are you meeting with? There is something physically destroying about every week typing 0 into the new pipeline each week. So I could pull this from Salesforce, but I want them to type. Actually, I added this to the pipeline last week. And then this is where I also figure out where I can either help or start adding resources. One thing you want to accomplish this week, specifically, just one thing. I want you to do more than one thing, but what's one thing? I want to get red lines on this. I want to connect this person with this person. Whatever it is, I want to send 5 prospect, whatever it is, one thing they want to accomplish, and did they accomplish last week's goal? And this gives me, and I go through and I comment on these. So they know, I mean, I'm trying to work across multiple geographies. I know what's important to them, and I can start pulling resources as well. This gives you, remember we talked about leading indicators? How many new meetings do we have this week? This gives me the ability. Accountability. Did you accomplish this, or are you just typing something in? If they just type something in, I'll comment on it. And what kind of momentum?
Sorry, Jen, do you push that down to your managers?
They see it. Everybody sees it. This is actually open to the business.
No, but I was wondering, is it done by you rolling up to you, or is it the managers actually doing it for their individual team?
Oh no, each individual teammate does this.
Yeah, okay.
I have down this, what you can't see underneath here is the names of every sales rep. So I can see at a glance, and the managers can see at a glance, their team and what's going on.
Yeah.
I am sure there are more high-tech ways of doing this. I haven't found one that gives everything in one view. Google Sheets works, and it's free.
It'd be interesting if anybody can throw any suggestions into the chat. That's what they're doing. But,
oh, sorry, I can't really see the chat right now because I've got this whole full screen. Anything that I should?
I'm just sorry, I'm on my mobile, so it's a bit tricksy. Yeah, just quite a couple of two questions. One saying, is Jeremiah saying, yeah, agreed, I do the same with my team. I assume you're referring to that most recent kind of weekly review. And then Federico saying you also run pipeline review on a weekly basis.
Yep. Oh, we're still getting to pipeline review. This is not pipeline review. This is Monday morning. I want this in Monday morning. Right? Now, so I'm going to assume kind of Chatham House rules here. Please don't share this with anybody, but I'm assuming we're all friends. We are all part of the Notion family. Unbabel is a Notion as well, but this is what I also send out as a result of this here. I send out Monday evening. Here's all the new logos that we're meeting with this week. And this goes to the whole company in our general Slack. And who did we close last week? Right? Starts to generate momentum. And again, sometimes just seeing the logo, people will be like, oh, I know somebody there. Again, this is not for distribution. It's just for you to get an idea. Okay, keep going on the weekly. One-to-ones. This should not just be deal focused, right? You want them to be more what's going on, what's blocking you, what's on your mind, how can I help? Do you just need to vent? There are times when I look at somebody and I say, do you want advice or do you want me just to listen? And sometimes they just want to vent, and it's okay. And I'll just shut up and listen to them vent, and then we'll move on. Pipeline reviews should be both backwards and forwards. Pipeline reviews should not just be what's in the pipeline. Obviously, you want to do that. You want to use MEDPIC or another qualification methodology to sanity check these deals, pressure test these deals, but also forward-looking. Who are you working on trying to add to the pipeline? What are your plans? What are you doing to drive more PG, pipeline generation? There are a lot of companies that have PG days where they pick one day of the week and the only thing everybody does is drive pipeline. No customer meetings, no other meetings. All you do is call, email, LinkedIn, anything to drive pipeline. Weekly, you probably want to also have forecast calls and team meetings as well. Does this seem pretty intuitive to everybody? Yeah. And last but not least, is there actually, before I go into this, is there anything that I don't have here that you are working on that works? Anything?
Yeah, the only other thing I would say is we do sometimes kind of like an after deal analysis, not just analyzing why we lost a deal, but why did we win a deal, and doing some highlights there, specifically the ones that are strategic. And as you spoke about earlier, we incentivize on what we want the behaviors to be, but that's kind of an incentive in its way of that recognition, having someone come on and do kind of an ask me anything session. Yep. With some team members on how did we win this deal? What's their use case? Why is it important to them? And following through with that. But that's been something that's a weekly activity that's been working well with my team.
I love that. Yeah, win-loss analysis are great. Loss analysis is even better. I mean, how you won is great. Why we lose. I love learning from failure, but I mean, I don't love to fail. Let me rephrase that. If we never had to do a loss analysis, that'd be phenomenal, but I'm also realistic. Yeah, thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah, we also do some of the industry topics as well. So what are the hot topics that are coming up? That might not be weekly, but it might certainly be monthly, bi-monthly, where we're discussing that. And in our world, regulation drives a lot. So if there's particular hot topic that's regulatory driven, that's coming up, that's suddenly causing pain in the industry generally, and people are tripping across, really want to get that out so we can really refocus our strategy and look at how we can best meet that needs and present ourselves in the best light.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, part of an enablement session, part of making sure that your reps are knowledgeable. So when they speak to their clients, they can bring knowledge to the clients as opposed to being caught on the back foot. That's great.
Exactly.
Jen, can I ask to what extent, whether it's weekly or monthly, are you looking kind of upwards towards kind of demand creation and kind of the other direction into kind of revenue realization and expansion?
I partner as a salesperson, I partner really closely with my CMO, and she is all over it in terms of demand, that demand creation and understanding what our clients want, where they are, how they respond. Yeah, that typically falls responsibility ownership wise on marketing, but obviously in close partnership with sales. So you cannot run a great organization where sales and marketing aren't aligned. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Can I get a thumbs up from my CMO? I'm teasing. So moving on to tooling. This is by no means exhaustive. And I'm sure I've probably missed something here, but one is you need a great CRM system. If it's not in the CRM system, it doesn't happen. So what I've found is that's just the easiest way. So when somebody's complaining, I was working on that account. Well, if it's not in Salesforce for us, that's nice. I unfortunately cannot read minds. My life would be so much easier if I could read minds, sometimes harder, but if it's not in the CRM, it's non-existent. You probably also want to start thinking about revenue analytics tools. So we are, for example, investing in Clari. There's other options out there. There's Exactly, Cluster, Troops, People AI, in terms of being able to analyze your deals and the revenue propensity, gives you visibility into the reality of your deals. And then in order to start figuring out TAM, you really need a great data supplier. There's GoodFit. A lot of you probably know Harrison. If you've seen any of his presentations, GoodFit is great for this. ZoomInfo, Cognizum, there's lots of providers out there. So that is it. Support your sales leader. They're busy. They're busy. I will open it if there's any questions.
I was wondering what Sophie. Hey, so you're up at landed at 12:30, and it's like 6 a.m. for Sophie, or 5:30 when she joined. So
they're beasts, and
they are.
They're
they
beasts.
Really so Sophie, what's the buddy system that you alluded to in the chat?
Sure. Sorry, I'm not all fixed up, so I'm not going to be on video. I wanted to obviously support Jennifer in this process, and also get a reminder of the things that we are putting in place or have in place with our sales team at Unbabel. But yeah, I mean, as Jennifer mentioned, salespeople are very busy, and nobody wants to be in Salesforce or constantly looking at engaging with other humans through a system, right? And so I find it always easier to not just sit in a team meeting and go, hey, salespeople, do you have any feedback? Nobody gives the feedback at a general level. And so I decided that, it's easier to get feedback when you're talking to someone one-on-one, right? When you're in a meeting. And so in order to provide an ability for us to have feedback and conversation and understanding what our salespeople need, I have assigned all of my markers, even interns, even creative people, to pair up with salespeople, and to have monthly, quarterly conversations where it's more casual and more engaging, so they can give us feedback in a way that's comfortable and natural, versus kind of this hoping for feedback in a very general forum. And so that helps my marketers stay in touch with the sales team, and vice versa, and building trust on, hey, what are you working on in marketing? Hey, what are you working on in sales? So adding that human element and partnership.
That's
and then,
we acquired. I don't know why. I've never thought of doing that. That's just so obvious. What a good idea.
Yeah, and we acquired a company, right, where we had another sales organization, and so I paired a marketer with the Lingo salesperson and an Unbabel salesperson. So again, we wanted to create better alignment and communication, and no better way than to build a relationship and have a normal one-to-one conversation. So that's just
Thanks,
what it
Sophie.
is.
Any other questions?
How, sorry, I can carry on doing this, you know.
I have a question, Stephen.
Who's that?
Oscar from
Hey,
Cadara.
Oscar.
I was curious, Jennifer, at the start, you mentioned like when we have our account executives is I'm struggling to find the exact level where it's slightly too many deals. And you mentioned at the start, obviously, you want to make sure they don't have too many because otherwise stuff gets lost in the pipeline. But I'm finding it quite hard to judge at what level too many is. Are we also, because we're like SMB mid-market, we're dealing with quite a lot of deals.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have any advice on that, because I'm finding it hard to observe exactly at what point that becomes too many.
That's a broader question that's probably really hard to answer in the space of a couple minutes, but you need to look at the average deal size, right? So if you go, I would love to show you the model that I have, but I would need to anonymize it a little bit. So let's just take, okay, so if you start off on how many meetings do you need to have? You just put a rough number in, right?
Yeah.
And then you figure meetings booked. What percentage of those go through to discovery or goes through to business validation? If you remember, I did a business sales process workshop. For me, our stages start at meeting booked and then discovery and then business validation. Discovery, I don't consider a real deal. We haven't validated that we actually can solve a problem. It's just discovery.
Yeah.
How many of those new business meetings become business validation, qualified opportunities, right?
Yeah.
What percentage of those then get a proposal? And of those that get a proposal, what percent do you win?
Okay.
Of that, what is the average deal size? And what is the deal cycle? How long does it take to close?
Mhm.
That will give you the number of, that will give you expected revenue for the year, right? Then you
Yeah.
can start figuring out, okay, this is my quota, what I need separate. This is my quota for the year. How many deals do I need, does each rep need to be working on? If you start figuring the deal cycle, 365 days in a year. And realistically, every deal won't be at the same stage at the same time. Some will just be in discovery. Some will be in the middle of legals and negotiation. I don't know the complexity of your deals. Some of it, you need to start looking, where do balls drop? Some reps are more productive than others. But at some point, things will start falling through the cracks unless you have extraordinary systems set up to basically automate as much as possible.
Yeah,
So
I think our thing is, I think stuff, almost our SDR team is so effective at the moment, and a lot of the deals are not. So we don't have as many steps as use days because we don't need them, because it's like a lot of it's SMB sales. So we can do, you know, 1-2 calls and then they could become a deal. You know, we could have sales cycles of 1-2 weeks at times.
Great.
And therefore, I think it's almost the quantity. It's like the A, and I'm finding it hard almost. I don't want to bring in too many AEs and they don't have enough to feed on.
Yeah.
And then, but vice versa, very quickly. And that balance as we grow at this speed has been tricky. So, but I'm going to run some of those numbers there on our side just to try and get an idea.
Yeah, I mean, the average for the transactional, and again, this is more anecdotal, but I've heard about you can be working maybe 20 at a time, given if they're so quick, if they go in, they go out.
Yeah.
But that would be, again, that 20 might even be too much. I can't give you a number without knowing.
Yeah, no, every situation is different, but
Yeah.
I was just curious in terms of the thought process and how you think behind it, which was very interesting.
Yeah, that's, I just think about how many deals do I need, and then kind of break it down there. Do you know your average, I don't want you to disclose it, but do you know your average deal size?
Yeah.
So okay, so then you can figure out how many deals need to close to hit your numbers. Knowing that percentage that maybe your quotas aren't high enough. If every rep is hitting their number, maybe quotas aren't high enough, or maybe you just have you have peak demand. Again, you just want to calibrate about that. I'm not saying you don't want more reps to hit your numbers, right? It's great. It's just on average, this is what I've worked at places where the founders are like, oh, we'll just take the number we told the board and divide it by the number of reps. And then they get shocked when everything doesn't go to plan. You just want to overplan.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's really useful. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hey, Jennifer. Yeah. So first of all, really, really helpful stuff. Thanks. This is Malik from Procuros. Just a quick question. I'd love to hear your view on the element of customer success. Because one thing we noted was it was super useful for us to have a regular exchange on how are the deals that you signed as a rep actually doing? Did you manage the expectations correctly? Are they set up from success throughout the sales process? And sort of getting that life cycle perspective with a sales rep was very useful. And I was just wondering if you would also place an element of this somewhere in your operating cadence and how you manage that topic.
Do you know what? I love that. And I haven't made it part of my regular cadence. I think that is something, thinking about it, that we can almost make a formal 3 months in, there has to be an AE CS check-in as to what went well, what didn't, how were expectations. I love that idea. Thank you. See, I learn something new every day. It's part of the sales process. I really want CS involved towards the end of the deal, so it's not just, hey, thank you for your signature and your money, I'm out of here. It's nicer when you bring somebody in, so there's a nicer handoff. But I like the idea of a formal 3-month check-in to make sure that expectations were set properly. I love that. I'm going to add that to my my list. Anyone else? Last 9 minutes. If you do have any questions that you want to ask me separately, I'm always available. I'm not always available. I can be available. How often do you review sales playbooks? All the time. Federico asked, how often do you review sales playbooks? All the time. And to be honest, I'm still working right now on, we don't really have a formal Unbabel sales playbook. Right now, we are consolidating 2 different organizations. But this is something you want to start thinking about, the sales plays that you're going to run fairly often. And those might evolve on a monthly or quarterly basis. Or as there might be some extraordinary event that happens that lets you capitalize.
Oh, one other quick question I had was more, when you showed the tech stack, there's a type of tool we're looking for at the moment that wasn't there, which is like our onboarding SDR AE software. Mm-hmm. Do you have any recommendations? Could be for anyone in the group, but we're looking at quite a lot, and there's a lot out there in that space for trying to automate it, because we're going to be hiring a lot of SDRs. And we want some sense of, at the moment, it's just one of us with a PowerPoint presentation. It's like prepared, but the level of automation could be higher.
If anybody has any suggestions, I would love to hear, because that's something that right now. We've got a series of videos that people go through, but it's not in a formal, have you actually watched this certificate? I mean, we're going to move to certification. We're just not there yet. That's a great. Anyone? Does anybody have a great onboarding tool? No. The other one that we're looking at is knowledge management. And I didn't put it in here because it's not necessarily a quarterly, but we're looking at, for those of you who have to do a lot of security reviews or RFPs, they become the bane of everybody's existence. So we're looking at bringing in something like a Loopio or an RFPIO to help automate RFPs and security questionnaires. And as you're onboarding a lot of SDRs, it serves as a knowledge base where they can type in the questions, because chances are it's the same questions over and over. Type it into this knowledge base and it'll pull it up. And that can be integrated in with email and Outlook and Slack.
Okay, I'll check that out. Yeah, we're looking at like UHub, Showpad, and a few others already at the moment for some software, but just was curious. It's not, no one seems to have any like recommendations in that space, but for all the others. But no, I'll check out those ones. Thanks.
Yeah, I didn't do the full tech stack that we have. I just did sort of the quarter for the cadence stuff. but obviously there's outreach. There's tons of tools that we have. This was more, how do you find the TAM? How do you manage these? But good point. The onboarding is huge and a nightmare. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I hope this was useful.
Thank you, Jen. It's been a great session as ever.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Have a good
Thank you.
weekend.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.